My name's Sylvia. My age is 78 coming, November, and it's
July.
26th of July.
Tell me about your family then. Your family had started coming from the Black Country in the 1930s. Just give me a bit of a picture.
My mother came to Newham Bridge from the year 1932. She had 8 girls and 4 boys, and we all went hop picking. We all liked it. We all thought it was an holiday.
Tell us about the journey from Quarry Bank. How would you? What was your preparation to go hop picking? How would your mum prepare for it?
Well, when my mum went hop picking, every week, a few months before, she used to get something on the side, like corned beef. I'd have shrimp paste, and she'd build herself up with what she was going to take, and I'd use the hop picking box to put it all in to store it ready for when we went. And of course, she'd have to go and see the agent woman, Mrs. Stafford, to know which barn she was going to be having. So anyhow, we'd be told by the agency where the hop picking boxes had got to be put. And when all the visitors, all the hop pickers, would take the boxes the night before, and there'd be somebody to watch these boxes because somebody could have took them off. There's clothes, there's food in them, and of course when Mum was preparing, Mum would have a cord round her neck with the keys to the hop picking box and the keys to the barrack, what we used to sleep in. Anyhow, we used to go by coach, by Yarrington's coach from Erdesley, and they'd arrange for a lorry to pick all these hop picking boxes up. But the hop picking lorry that took the hop picking boxes used to go in front of the coach. We were excited because we didn't have many coach trips. We'd never been far out of that village. And we'd take about an hour to get from where we lived to Newham Bridge. And once we got to the barracks, everybody would get off. You'd get into your barrack. You'd start fetching the water. They'd start lighting the fires, ready for cups of tea and the lunch you're cooking. And can we stop?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So when we got a bit organised, of course we always went after the cows to see them be milked, which we loved. And of course we knew all the farm hands that used to do all of, the milking. Of course, we'd have Wellingtons on, and when they used to come get the cows out after the milking, that we used to help to drive the cows into the field. And we'd do that on a morning before we went down the hop yard to help to bring the cows back in. Yeah, and the milking.
What was the sleeping arrangements like in the barracks?
Well, in the barracks, the farmers used to live like old tree trunks, and there was all straw, and my mum used to lift the straw up to lighten it, and then she used to take her own blankets and her own sheets and cover it all, and we'd all lay in the same bed because we'd all be very small children, and we'd still have to go to bed at a certain time. But before we went to bed, the farmers would allow every farm worker to have a pint of cider at night time. And she'd boil this cider and put a bit of sugar in it, so as it helped us to sleep. but it'd be like a little small cup, and it kept us warm. And of course my mum would have to light the Kelly lamps and candles. We had candles as well. No fires there. Nobody ever got burnt or nothing. That was our night.
Tell me a bit more about the kiddie lamp.
The Kelly lamp. When we went down to the upyard, we'd have to take the Kelly lamp up to the farmhouse, and they'd fill it with oil, ready for the night time. So when we finished at the night time of picking the ops, we call it the farm to pick the Kelly lamp up to be able to use it at night time.
So what was your mum's habit though of keeping her own?
Oh, she always had a ribbon on, and it used to be a Scotch plaid ribbon. So and I always knew I had that one and didn't have anybody else's.
Can Sylvia just make that clear? Just
So perhaps you could go back and say we used to bring our kiddie lamps up to the farm in the morning. Mum always put a ribbon on hers.
Yeah.
We marry those two together.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yep.
when you're ready.
Mum always.
It's all right.
Tell me again.
We used to bring our kiddie lamps up to the farm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My mum used to bring our Kelly lamps up, and she always made a point of having her own put a ribbon on it. She knew it was hers.
That's great.
Tell me about the bread.
Yeah. Well, my mum, before we went down, while we were taking the Kelly lamps to the farm, Mum always put her order in, and we always had a batch cake. The farmers used to have it delivered from Tembury bakery shop. So before Mum had it, she always paid. Always had the money off her. And we used to have our milk, and you used to have your own jugs, fetched it, and you paid for it, and you'd order that. And they in the farmhouse, they got their own cellar, and you'd go with her to the cellar and come up with this lovely milk.
What did it taste like?
Oh, creamy, but nothing like today.
Tell me about the hop boxes that you used for clothes and food.
Yes, my mum had she had two up picking boxes, one for the clothes and one for the food, and she used to have all tin stuff in, because you got to have sandwiches, tomatoes and all sorts, and in the other one she'd have all our clothes, because we could have a change at the weekend. And my father used to bring things in his suitcase, and there'd be stuff, chocolates from Cadbury's, because my sisters worked at Cadbury's, and biscuits, and of course when they do the pies at home, and apple pies, and my dad would be bringing those as well, and of course then I'm stuck again.
That's right. Okay, cameras rolling.
My dad used to come to catch two buses to come into Newnham Bridge, and when he used to come down, he used to have a big blue case on his shoulder. I don't know how earth he used to carry it, and he used to come into the upyard, and he'd start picking with us all. Of course, we were all excited when Dad was there, you know, and all the visitors would start to come as well from the area, because nobody got a car, and they'd all have to get two buses to get one from Stourbridge into Kidderminster, and from Kidderminster into Newnham Bridges, and it was the Midland Red bus.
Say that again, Sylvia, because you were telling me before that they used to have visitors on the Sunday, or was it Saturday? People used to arrive just for the
Oh
day.
yes, it used to be in the week. Not only that, people would come from the Black Country from the area we live, Borrybank, and they come on coaches, and they'd be visitors just for an afternoon, and they'd be come to the cribs. If they knew you, we'd shout them, and they'd come and pick for you. And of course, you've ops in the crib would be coming up, and of course, my mum would have a little fire in the up yard, and she'd put the kettle on, and it'd have a teapot, enamel, and she'd do them a cup of tea, and they enjoyed that. And of course, after then they go up to the barracks, what I call the barns or the barracks, and they'd have another cup of tea, and then probably after half an hour they'd all go back home. So
I love that. I bet that cup of tea tastes like nothing else.
Well, I'm going to do you one after.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
I'll get away.
Oh, let's forget the interview.
Yeah. Sorry, Rick.
Yeah.
So, if you can just set the scene, you're in the what sort of injuries or stings you might have got in the field, and about the Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah.
So when you're ready.
The Sisters of Mercy, one used to come with a priest, and they'd come in an little Austin car, and she always came to my mother's crib, and she'd open a case up, and you'd see all the tweezers, the plasters, the bandages, gentian violets, and everything. And then the children would come to where my mum had got her crib, and she would administer, all these cuts and stings that the children had received, because there was wasps' nests sometimes in the upyards. And while we were in the upyards, you could look up the forest, and if we saw the rabbits run across, we'd be that excited, not thinking my brother did catch a rabbit, and he took it back home, and because we got a rabbit hutch, but the rabbit escaped. Anything else on that? I've got to go on to about the rosaries and that, haven't I? While the priest and the Sister of Mercy were there, they'd sell the rosaries and the little books. I have got a little book, I'll show you what they used to sell. And my mum bought us one. I think a member of the family had it, but she was very kind to all us children, and I did like children, and she looked beautiful to us, got lovely clear skin as well. But they didn't go on much about the religion. They harp on it about it. We just accepted them, and they just came 5 days a week. And if it rained, like it did this morning, she'd put on her what I call like her uniform. She'd have a grey mac on, and it used to look a bit odd because it'd be sticking out, wouldn't it? So, anything else?
What did she sell? What did she sell out of her case? You said about prayer books.
Oh, she didn't sell the medication.
No, but the rosary beads and prayer books.
Oh, they sold them, to the children and to the grown-ups for the children to have, and we'd all have them, wear them while we were there. You were lucky if you could afford one, because they weren't cheap. And every week I'd say, "Mum, can I have one?" My mum would say no, because she couldn't afford to buy all of us one, could she? I'd say you'd have to have it on turn,
So just looking at me, just tell me again the same story about Sister Catherine, is it?
Sister Christine. Now this is Sister Christine on this photograph, and Sister Christine used to sell beads of rosary and little prayer books, and this is a sister that used to administer all the medication to the children that needed it. And for instance, wasp stings and cuts. Maybe they had a rash, they put stuff on that. They'd have cough mixture, and I liked that cough mixture. I'd got a cough when I hadn't got a cough. Stop it. I used to love that, but it was brown. I forgot about the cough mixture. One day, I'd had a boil sweet, and I'd swallowed this boil sweet, and it got stuck here, and it was really hurting, and I was crying. And the pole puller, Mr. Davis, he came and he said to me, "Mum, what's he crying for?" He says, "Oh, she swallowed a sweet and it's hurting her." And he said, "Have a drink of my cider," which I did to try and shift it, and I was swallowing bread to try and move it. He says, "If you'll stop crying, I shall bring you something back nice this afternoon." When he'd been back home for his break. And when he came, he bought me great big yellow plums. And that's one incident I could remember.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Sylvia. Lemon and
Mr. Lemon, Mr. Luton. I'll tell you about this. Mr. Lemon and Mr. Luton used to come every Sunday morning. And we all used to gather round the fire, and he used to play hymns and we used to sing to him. And of course, we always went to Sunday school and we always knew the hymns. And the most famous the elderly used to ask was the old rugged cross. And what a friend we have in Jesus. That used to come on every Sunday morning. And Mr. Lemon and Mr. Luton went into Quarry Bank, and they'd built a new community centre. And when they were there, he says, "Does anybody know Mrs. Tibbets?" And this lady said, "Yes, I do." He says, "Would you go and ask her to come up and see me?" So they fetched my mum up to see him. And you know what he gave her? A big Bible. My sister's got that Bible, and it was a big Bible. But Mr. Luton sent my brother a Bible because he was in the forces. He was in the Korean War. And he said, "This will keep him safe." You know, because we would all went to church and whatnot, you know, from when we was children. My mum always said we had education in religion. Not that it costed.
Did you say that Mr. Lemon and Mr. Luton, that they played the accordion?
Yes.
So can you just tell us?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Lemon was only a little man, a little plump man, and he got this big accordions he used to play. And I did hear that his daughter has got that accordion today.
But can you maybe just tell us a little bit what it was when you all gathered on a Sunday,
Yeah.
and he'd play the accordion, and then everyone would join in singing? Just paint the picture of it.
Yeah.
And I think, did you describe him and Mr. Luton as missionaries?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
perhaps you could just go back again, just say that.
Yeah. Mr. Luton and Mr. Lemon were both missionaries, and I think they went from up Stoke.
That's
It's
all right.
all right.
Sorry,
I think they went from I've got the word. Yeah, they went from farm to farm, but I think they always went to Cooper's farm first. And of course, this accordion was nearly as big as went right down to the bottom of his stomach and up here. And the kids loved it. I mean, and then we used to have what we call the magic lantern. And the magic lantern would come in the week, one night in the week, and they'd show these little movie thing, you know, the old movie things, not the films we know today, but the old ones. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember them? You know what I'm on about, do you? It's not helping me. Is it? What else do you want me to say?
No, just say that's
the
really
Magic
lovely.
Lantern
That's
sounds nice,
really
yeah.
lovely. So just tell us where it took place and who was there. And
Oh yeah.
Where you, what you sat on. So if you
Oh
could
yeah.
just
Oh
start
yeah.
again, so the
Oh
magic
yes.
lantern
Oh
used
yeah.
to come.
Yeah. When the magic lantern used to come, it used to be in there'd be a farm, a fire, and we'd be under a big shed. And I think they used to put the cattle under this shed in the winter time, but there'd be a fire that we in there, and we used to sit on oil tins that the farmers had used. They got a lot of them, and we used to take them down the upyard and pick in them, and sometimes we'd sit on them by the crib, because it's a long date for children. I mean, we'd be down that upyard at 7:30 in the morning. It was just about getting light, you know, and don't forget, if it was raining, when we had rainy weather, I mean, it stopped so long, but when you've realised that probably a couple of hours, everybody'd have to go back up to the barracks, you know, because I remember one year it had a real flood, and Cooper's farm, in the field, the field came like that, and at the bottom it flooded, just like a river, and it had struck an apple tree, and the apples were bobbing in this, and we thought it was hilarious. We were sitting in the back barrack, and we could see this, and we was jumping up to look at these apples, you know. We used to go at night, probably once a week, under the shanty. Now the shanty had a fire underneath it, and we used to sit on oil drums to watch this magic show. What did we call it now?
Magic lantern.
So I don't. If we start again, that'd be all right. Is that okay?
Yeah, you'd start again.
Yeah, that's a good thing about this. You can.
I remember the word shanty.
Yeah.
Because it was a proper, you know,
Yeah.
it was open fronted.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, ready when you are then,
Yeah.
Sylvia.
We used to go under a shanty that was open fronted, and there'd be a fire in, and we'd be sitting on oil tins to watch the magic lantern. All the children used to get together to watch that, and it was half an hour, but we liked it. They used to light the fires, and when my mum had her own fire, they used to have all the wood from the apple trees, and it used to be in a pile, and they would call it faggots, you know, in them days, and we'd help Mr. Stafford to drag all this firewood round, because it was a few, like the next field to where we were, and it was all kept together. I was frightened in case there was snakes there. I was terrified in case, but we did a bit of scrumping. We went after the nuts, hazelnuts. We knew all about nature. And on a Sunday, on a morning, we'd all go a walk along the lanes, and we'd all got a stick. I don't know what we had a stick for, but it was like a walking stick, and it was the elderflower, and we used to mark it with the knives, make fancy patterns on them. And you know, I had got my own walking stick, and of course we thought we was important when we used to be driving the cows, but of course we never hit the cows because I want into that sort of things. And of course, the farmer thought a lot of his cows. I must say that he looked after, and he used to keep them year in. We used to give them names. You know, like we say, oh, he's got that little one again, little black cow, we used to call him, you know, and things like that. Yeah.
What about in the barracks? Did you ever have mice and rats?
Not that I ever saw anything.
That's good.
In the barracks, he used to, what did they call it? Whiten, lime. He used to lime his barracks every year. And I think he may have stored stuff when the hop-pickers weren't there, you know. And they were all, and they was always kept good. But some slept in the cow sheds. My mum wouldn't go in the cow sheds, and they were, some were right by the bull. They were. Mrs. Stafford always used to have that one that when you had to go through the gate, well, that was the gate where you went up to the cow sheds. And they never took any notice, you know, nor the smell or nothing. It don't bother me with the cows in the field here, the smell. I usually call the cows down here. Down to Patter, eh? And they come. Don't bother me, the smell, you know. Probably some kids would go, oh, my grandson would say, you know, but not me.
Say it again.
I know when I see a good hop. Yeah.
What's a good hop? Tell us.
A good hop is a nice one, a 2-inch one. But I do know there's different varieties, and I know there's smaller hops. But as I was saying, the end hops, the bines, are thinner, not so good. The farmer used to make them all share, cut them down and go to every crib in 3 each. And of course, while we were there was local people that used to, you know, go to the hop yard as well. He employed local people, you know. One year, my mum was there, and we had a dog from there. We had a collie dog, and there was one of the young men that was there. I think there was something wrong with him, and he said, Mrs. Tibbets, he says, would you like a dog? And of course, us with children, a puppy, and we said, oh, Mum, let us have one. And of course, they were going to drown him. You see, you know, of course they didn't want him. And my mum said, go on then, and I'll have one. And we named her Lassie. Oh, and she was lovely, like Lassie off the telly. It was really a lovely dog.
Just tell us how many bushels you packed.
Oh, usually, if there was a person on their own, they'd probably they'd only have about 5 bushels. But if there was a family, you might have 9. If you've got children, you know. And of course, you may have a lot more if you've got visitors, you know. You may have had, what we used to do is get one of the sacks, and if you got visitors, put them in the sacks, because your crib would get full, really full. And shall I tell you the story about the other one about him? If the farmer, when he was actually bushling, if he was being naughty and he was pushing the hops into the basket, they'd grumble, and they'd tell him not to be sucking them down, because of course he was making them harder, so he was getting more to the bushel. And of course we went on strike, we heard that there was one farm getting a penny more than our farm, so they all stopped and we all went back to the barracks for the day, and by the next morning we were all back in the hop yard. That all right?
That's
That's
nice
lovely.
story.
Yeah.
Did you get your penny extra?
Yes. We had our penny. We had our penny extra, and of course everybody was singing then. Wouldn't they be?
Well, you were telling me that people used to sing in the hop yard.
Yeah,
Can you tell me about that?
yeah. When it was a bright day, if it was the sunshine, somebody would start to sing, and start even to sing hymns, and some had got quite good voices. And of course, you know, there was elderly people, there was people with children, and with families. There was a family I knew from Corrybank. They had twins, and they used to have to wash the napkins and boil the napkins on. I've seen them hanging them on the line, hanging from the tree by the barrack, you know, when we've been children. But they've managed to do it, you know.
You were telling me about, is it red-headed Gilbert?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me that story.
Oh, shall I tell about the... well, Gilbert had got red hair and he was a bachelor. And on the very last day of the hop picking, very last bushel, all the women used to get hold of Gilbert and throw him in the crib. He knew it was coming, but they managed to get him to lift him up. And it was a family of girls, but they were all married, these girls. They got children, but they weren't working. You know, like when they had children, they didn't work in them days, did they? But that was a bit of fun for us because everybody was screaming and laughing.
So the ball got out?
The ball got out. Well, every so often, Gilbert would let the ball in the yard where the cows come out of the cow sheds to have the drinks and things like that. Well, he'd had the bull out in that yard, and somebody had gone through the gate and left the gate open, and the bull had run from one gate to the other gate over the other side of the road. Of course, they couldn't get the bull back in. You see, and they were all frightened to go to the toilet because the toilets were down there. But they did get it in the next day. Of course, bulls are expensive, aren't they? You know, you got to get that bull in. Mrs. Stafford was the lady who was the agency for taking all the hop pickers from Corrybank area. And she did a job as well. And she was an enameller for doing pots and pans, kettles, you name it, she did it. And she was what they call a pickler. And a pickler, I hear, is not a very nice job. But she did that, and they allowed her to have that time off from that factory to go up picking for the 3 weeks. And she went because her husband was, in a way, he was a sick man. He didn't work, Mr. Stafford. Is there anything else on that?
Well, how much she got paid?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got
That's
it.
all right.
For every client that she took, she used to get a shilling for every client that she got together. So that would be another part of her wage. And her husband used to have a shilling for lighting the fires every week. 1 shilling every week just for lighting the fires. So,
I've never heard of that before.
yeah. Well, you wouldn't do it for nothing, would you?
Did you have devils on your farm?
There was the devil, then it was under the shanty. And we on it, you see, you couldn't have an open fire. Well, that had to be lit with the devil on. We used to have to go under the shanty because it got soaking wet. The fire wouldn't lit, would it? But it wasn't so good as having the fire outside, you know, because it was arranged better. And there was more kettles and pots could go on, you know.
Did you have travellers and gypsies on farm picking?
Yes, we did.
Can you tell us about that?
What was the names there, Pat? What was the names? I'll have to ask him the names of them. Oh, there was a Griffiths. There was a Griffiths, and what was the other one? Oh. Yeah, there was a family of called Griffiths on, and we used to see them. There was got a lot of children. The Griffiths had, and I can pick them out now in them in Tembra. I can pick these children out, and I've asked. They've said yes. So, but they were very hard workers. I'll say that about the gypsies. They were hard workers. Do they like to be? I think they were Romany, because they were very swarthy looking. You know.
I just wonder, do you want Sylvia to hold this up? Because it's obviously photographers used to go to the fields.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be like a bit of a photography
Yeah.
parallel. Yeah.
This is. Can I give you that, Sylvia?
Yeah.
So what do you remember about that photo?
Well, I remember about that photo, having that taken, and it was the end of the day, and it was a nice day, as you can tell by the... Is it high enough, this?
I'll tell you what, let me just change something. That's better. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm ready now, Sylvia, thank you.
I remember having this photograph. A gentleman came in, asked my mother. He came in a car. He asked if we'd like our photographs. It was supposed to be professional. And if he took it, he'd send it on after. And this was the end of the day. And all my sisters had gone back up to the barracks. So I was fortunate to have my photograph took with my mother that night. Well, we used to, if we weren't very well, because you used to have your be a bit bad off, because when the babies, when they were babies, they put them in the side the crib. And they reckon that the fumes off the ops was good for, I suppose that's why they have them for sleeping, isn't it? And they used to put the babies in the cribs. I mean, my mother took us down my mother was pregnant when I went. My first trip, wouldn't know nothing about it, would I? And I went till I was 11 years of age. And of course that's when they stopped because they were prosecuting. But of course my mother had been a lot of years before and took all the rest of my sisters earlier on in their life. And they all liked it. I mean, it was good fun.
Were there ever any arguments in the hop field?
Oh yeah, there would be. Oh yeah, there would have been if they were in certain rows, because if you think about it, there was women. There used to be a crib, and they used to have to share a crib if there was only there was two separate people, and of course, if you were a family, and the quicking of the picking, you'd be right up the forest and they'd be down here. So what had happened is they'd have to fetch their ops, because they used to like the ops to keep level. And of course, if they thought you was having a bind that the ops looked bigger, they wouldn't be very pleased, would they? So they'd be having arguments. And of course, we used to have pole pullers. Now, pole pullers, it was a hook with a big pole on, and if they got stuck up on the wires, the pole puller would have to come and shoot them off. It'd cut them and it'd come down. But at the end of the day, when we knew the bushler was coming, he'd come down on his tractor, and when he came down on his tractor, you know what the pole pullers used to shout? Pick 'em up and clear 'em out. And that means to say, to clear the leaves out of the ops, out of your crib, and pick the ops off the floor. Never wasted nothing. So that was the word, pick 'em up and clear 'em out.